Welcome to Legacy Black of Power. 19 black actresses who are dying from cancer that you didn't know about. Beautiful and talented black actresses often appear to have the world at their feet. Fame, fortune, and headline-making contracts. They shine on the silver screen, celebrated as icons of beauty, brilliance, and strength. But real life isn't always as flawless as it looks. Money can open many doors, but it can't buy the one thing that matters most: health. No matter how high their star rises, cancer can still find its way into their lives. The 19 stories I'm about to share are powerful reminders of that truth. These actresses once inspired millions, lighting up an entire industry with their presence. Yet behind the scenes, many face a relentless grip of cancer. When illness strikes, the spotlight dims, the applause fades, and what remains is a deeply personal and often brutal battle for survival. Anna Maria Horsford, known for her unforgettable turns as Thelma Fry, Dee Baxter, and her powerful presence in the Colored Museum, has always commanded admiration. Her sharp comedic timing, magnetic warmth, and ability to disappear into any role made her a beloved figure both on stage and on screen. Behind that bright, generous smile was a strength that inspired everyone who crossed her path. But in this fictional account, that same smile concealed a storm she never expected to face. Her battle began in 2022, when sudden waves of abdominal pain disrupted her daily life. At first, she brushed it off as simple digestive trouble, a harmless sign of getting older. But the pain grew sharper, more relentless, impossible to ignore. Seeking answers, she was met with a diagnosis that shook her world: stage 2 colon cancer. Overnight, her thriving career, her plans, her sense of normalcy, all of it slipped into uncertainty. Surgery came first, the removal of a section of her colon. Necessary, but only the beginning. Afterward, she entered the exhausting rhythm of chemotherapy. Her once strong body weakened. The stomach pain returned. Fluid retention caused rapid weight changes that made even small movements a struggle. Every day felt like climbing a mountain with no clear summit. By 2023, she stepped away from major film work. A small role in Mr. Iglesias became her last on-camera appearance before she shifted to voice acting. Yet even her voice began to reveal the toll the illness had taken. Photos from a quiet event in early 2024 broke fans' hearts. Anna seated for the entire program, her face drawn with fatigue, hands trembling as she powered through with the grace she was known for. Privately, only her closest friends knew the truth: the sleepless nights, the unrelenting pain, the fear she carried silently. And still, she gave. She continued supporting community programs, especially those uplifting black artists. Despite the disease wearing down her body day by day, her dedication never wavered. She lived for the art she loved and the people she believed in, moving forward with courage stronger than the illness trying to stop her. CCH Pounder, long celebrated as a commanding screen presence, from her unforgettable turn as Claudette Wims in The Shield to her work in Avatar, has always been the kind of actress who could fill a room with quiet strength. Her performances didn't just entertain, they resonated, leaving audiences with characters that felt carved from truth. But in this reimagined story, everything changes in 2022, when she discovers a small lump on her neck. What began as mild discomfort, trouble swallowing, a raspy voice, slowly grew into something that threatened the very craft she devoted her life to. In this narrative, doctors deliver the crushing news: thyroid cancer. The diagnosis hits like a sudden drop in the spotlight, leaving her struggling to reconcile the life she built with the fear now shadowing it. Surgery comes quickly. Though necessary, it marks the beginning of a long and punishing battle. Her strength wanes, her once steady voice quivers, and each movement feels like a fragile step into the unknown. When radiation treatment begins in 2023, the toll becomes undeniable: weight loss, thinning hair, and days where simply standing feels like an act of courage. In this imagined timeline after NCIS, New Orleans concludes in 2021. She quietly steps back from major roles. Fans who catch glimpses of her at smaller events see the fatigue in her every motion, the careful pace, the need for support, yet also the fire that never fully goes out. Despite everything, she refuses to surrender her purpose. She continues championing community arts programs in her beloved homeland of Guyana, pouring what energy she can into the causes that shaped her heart. Still, her eyes reveal the lingering fear of the illness advancing, of time slipping through her fingers. This fictional journey paints CCH not just as an actress, but as a symbol of endurance. Even as pain and uncertainty loom, she pushes forward, determined to reclaim her voice and her place under the lights, knowing every step is a fight against fate itself. Alfre Woodard, a steadfast spirit burning bright. Alfre Woodard, Oscar-nominated for Cross Creek and unforgettable as Mistress Shaw in 12 Years a Slave, has long captivated audiences with performances rich in depth, resilience, and quiet power. On screen, she radiated strength. Off-screen, she was fighting a battle no one could see. Her struggle began in 2022 when a lingering cough and shortness of breath interrupted rehearsal. She brushed it off as pneumonia, but the truth blindsided her. Stage 2 lung cancer. The diagnosis shook her to her core. Treatment came fast and hit hard. Surgery, chemotherapy, and radiation stripped her physical strength. Her weight fell from 143 to 110 pounds. Her hair thinned, her skin darkened, and relentless chest pain stole her sleep. Nights were long, heavy with fear and uncertainty. Soon, even walking required an oxygen tank. Each step a reminder of how drastically life had changed. Yet the greatest toll wasn't physical. Watching her once unshakable strength fade was emotionally devastating. Through those difficult months, she quietly stepped away from major film roles. By 2023, her presence on screen had nearly vanished. In 2024, she appeared only at a few charity events, her slow gait and fragile frame revealing what she never spoke aloud. Still, in a rare public moment, Alfre acknowledged the dark days spent struggling to hold on to hope. And even in her pain, her heart remained open. She continued uplifting young Black artists, guiding them, encouraging them, helping them shine. Because even when her own light dimmed, she refused to stop lighting the way for others. Phylicia Rashad, a queen of the stage and a beloved figure to millions, seemed unshakable. Known for her iconic portrayal of Claire Huxtable on The Cosby Show, she embodied grace, strength, and warmth, both on screen and off. Her career never dimmed. Even in recent years, she dazzled audiences with her presence, appearing in projects like Creed 3, 2023, and proving her enduring power as an artist. But in 2022, everything changed. What began as stubborn bloating and sharp abdominal pain, symptoms she brushed off as simple digestive trouble, soon revealed a far more devastating truth: Stage 1 ovarian cancer. The diagnosis hit her like a blow. Dizzy, stunned, she struggled to reconcile the reality before her. Never, not once, had she imagined a battle like this would appear at the peak of her professional life. She underwent surgery to remove the tumor, but recovery was a mountain far steeper than she expected. The pain was relentless. Her strength, once effortless, now felt fragile. Even the mild chemotherapy drained her completely. Weight dropped quickly, her cheeks hollowed, and her once vibrant hair began to thin. By 2024, she found herself wrapping her head in scarves before stepping into her classroom, a quiet reminder that her body was no longer the fortress it used to be. By 2023, she stepped away from major acting roles, choosing instead to pour her passion into teaching. But even in the classroom, the struggle followed her. Fatigue clung to her. The recurring abdominal pain sometimes forced her to pause mid-lecture, steadying herself before continuing. Each time she rose to speak, her body resisted. Yet she met that resistance with unyielding resolve. Because Phylicia Rashad did not quit. The fear, the uncertainty, the weight of the disease, none of it dimmed the light she carried into every room. Though her personal world grew quieter and more private, her impact only deepened. To her students and her community, she continued to teach her most powerful lesson of all: a true fighting spirit can never be extinguished. Debbie Allen, a blazing force of passion and movement, saw her brilliant flame dimmed by the quiet, ruthless advance of endometrial cancer. Known for her unforgettable portrayal of Lydia Grant in Fame and her visionary work behind the scenes of Grey's Anatomy, she had long been a symbol of creativity, resilience, and boundless energy. For decades, she inspired millions, especially the young dancers and actors who chased their dreams because she taught them to believe they could. But 2023 brought a cruel twist. Symptoms that seemed harmless at first, irregular bleeding, persistent pelvic pain, were brushed aside as signs of aging or the tail end of menopause. When the diagnosis finally came, it shattered her world: endometrial cancer. In a moment, everything she knew about her body, her future, her rhythm of life changed. A hysterectomy marked the beginning of a long and unforgiving battle. Post-surgery chemotherapy was relentless. Each treatment session stole weight from her frame, loosened her skin, and thinned her once vibrant hair. The woman who had commanded stages with impossible grace now appeared only rarely, often beneath a wig, her energy drained. Chronic bone pain made movement a constant negotiation with suffering. Fatigue shadowed every day. By late 2023, Debbie stepped back from acting, turning her focus to directing Grey's Anatomy. Even then, persistent pain transformed every shoot into a test of endurance. When she appeared at a dance event in 2024, fans were struck silent. She moved slowly, gripping a chair for balance, her eyes reflecting months of quiet struggle. She rarely spoke publicly about her illness, yet in a candid moment with students, she hinted at the truth. There are days when my body betrays me. The fear of her disease advancing followed her everywhere, but surrender was never in her vocabulary. Despite failing health, she never stopped lifting others up. She kept teaching, kept directing, kept inspiring. Even as her body weakened, her spirit refused to yield. Debbie Allen remained a warrior, proving that while illness can batter the body, it cannot extinguish a soul determined to keep shining. Sheila E.'s iconic drumbeat continues to echo, even as the devastation of breast cancer tries to silence it. Known worldwide as a phenomenal percussionist and one of Prince's closest collaborators on hits like The Glamorous Life, Sheila E. wasn't just a music legend. She also stepped into acting, leaving her mark on pop culture throughout the 1980s and shaping the sound of modern music. But behind the sparkle of the spotlight, a brutal personal battle began. In 2022, during a routine checkup, Sheila discovered a lump in her left breast. What she'd brushed off as mild discomfort soon unraveled into a life-altering diagnosis: breast cancer. In an instant, her bright, electrifying world dimmed, opening the door to fear, uncertainty, and pain. She underwent surgery quickly, but the struggle that followed proved far tougher. Chemotherapy hit hard. Her hair fell out almost completely, forcing her to hide beneath wigs during the rare moments she felt strong enough to perform. The fiery rhythms that once shook the stage now carried a heaviness. Every beat seemed to echo with a new kind of hurt. By 2023, hormone therapy began, and Sheila barely recognized the woman staring back at her. Her once radiant face grew gaunt, her sharp, powerful voice weakened. Canceling major tours became inevitable. Slowly, she slipped away from the grand stages she once commanded, choosing instead to appear at charity events where she could still find purpose and the strength to stand. The medications left her joints aching relentlessly. Each public appearance showed her moving slower, pausing mid-event as if every step carried the weight of her suffering. In a 2024 interview, she fought back tears while opening up about her battle. Nights spent without sleep, days overshadowed by fear that the disease might worsen. Yet through it all, Sheila E. refused to let cancer break her spirit. Even when exhaustion flickered in her eyes, her resolve never wavered. She continues to stand as a beacon of courage, inspiring countless others facing the same fight. Lynn Whitfield, once a cinematic blaze of light, found that brilliance dimming under the shadow of leukemia. Known for her electrifying portrayal of Josephine Baker in the 1991 HBO biopic and her haunting performance in Eve's Bayou, Lynn had long captivated audiences with depth of emotion few could match. She wasn't merely a film icon. She was a symbol of resilience, grace, and creative fire. But in 2022, her world shifted. What began as lingering fatigue, low-grade fevers, and swollen lymph nodes in her neck seemed, at first, like the toll of stress. Then came the bruises, dark, sudden, and unexplainable. The diagnosis struck like a blow: chronic lymphocytic leukemia. Determined to reclaim her life, Lynn embarked on an aggressive treatment plan. immunotherapy paired with chemotherapy. The battle was brutal. Her weight dropped from 132 to 106 pounds. Her once radiant complexion grew pale, her hair thinned, and she began wearing scarves during the rare moments she stepped into public view. Fevers, joint pain, and crushing exhaustion forced her to abandon plans and, at times, challenged the hope she fought to hold on to. After Greenleaf concluded in 2020, Lynn gradually stepped back from major roles. By 2022, she limited herself to small projects, constrained by relentless fatigue. When she did appear, usually at charity events, fans were struck by how slowly she moved, how hollow her once luminous eyes had become. The vibrant force they remembered now seemed like a fragile silhouette. Though fiercely private about her health, Lynn opened up briefly in a rare 2024 interview, acknowledging the quiet battles she faced each day, against her illness, against fear, against uncertainty. Yet even in her weakest moments, her devotion to the arts never faltered. She continued to mentor young talent, offering the kind of guidance and encouragement that had shaped her own journey. Her body may have wavered, but her spirit, the light that defined her, refused to be extinguished. Whoopi Goldberg, the Oscar-winning star of Ghost and the razor-sharp voice behind The View, was cherished for her wit, warmth, and undeniable strength. To millions, she embodied resilience. But behind her bright smile and mischievous humor, a silent nightmare was taking shape. In early 2024, she spotted a small, dark patch on her left arm. She brushed it off as another sign of aging, until it began to spread. When doctors finally examined it, the diagnosis hit like a thunderclap: stage 1 skin cancer. For someone as energetic and unstoppable as Whoopi, the news was devastating, marking the beginning of one of the toughest fights of her life. Surgery became unavoidable, and the immunotherapy that followed drained her both physically and emotionally. The side effects were unrelenting: loose skin, a hollowed face, and a sudden 15-pound weight loss. The vibrant presence fans adored seemed to fade. Her appearances on The View grew sporadic. Her once booming voice became softer, her movements slower, her energy fragile. Even walking caused pain around the surgical site. Yet Whoopi pushed forward, clinging to her work with sheer determination. Her trademark sparkle dimmed, replaced by a quiet resolve. In a poignant 2025 interview, she admitted to days when my body just won't cooperate, to sleepless nights and persistent aches. But even then, she refused to let the illness define her. In this story, Whoopi Goldberg stands as a symbol of unyielding courage, fighting not just for her health, but for her spirit. Mary J. Blige, the legendary voice that shaped a generation, found herself brought to her knees by a pain she never saw coming: breast cancer. Known for her powerhouse vocals and unforgettable roles like Florence Jackson in Mudbound, and for timeless hits such as Family Affair, Mary had always stood as a symbol of strength and soul. But in 2023, her life took a devastating turn. It started quietly. A small lump in her right breast, something she dismissed at first, grew into an ache she could no longer ignore. When she finally sought answers, the diagnosis shattered her world: stage 1 breast cancer. Surgery to remove the tumor was only the beginning of a long, brutal journey she never imagined she'd walk. Chemotherapy stole her hair, a loss especially painful for someone whose image had always been part of her artistry. In public, she wore wigs to keep up appearances, but behind the scenes, the facade was fragile. Hormone therapy drained the life from her body throughout 2023. Mornings felt like battles against herself. Her once radiant glow faded as pale skin, tired eyes, and a 13-pound weight loss marked the toll treatment. Performances grew fewer and farther between. Even when she stepped on stage, she sometimes had to pause, catching her breath while fighting through waves of bone pain and nausea. Some days, she couldn't get out of bed. The fear of an uncertain future lingered like a shadow. In a 2025 post, Mary finally opened up about the quiet war she had been fighting, a story threaded with vulnerability, hidden anxiety, and unwavering resilience. Yet despite everything, Mary J. Blige never gave in. She chose to speak out, offering hope to those facing their own battles. Her body may have weakened, but her spirit rose above the suffering, proving once again that the human can shine even in life's darkest chapters. Rebecca Cruz, the heart of a beloved TV family, was thrust into a brutal battle with breast cancer. Known as a quiet force behind many artists' success and the unwavering pillar beside her husband, Terry Crews, Rebecca earned admiration for her talent, her warmth, and her unshakable spirit. She embodied family, love, and joy until 2020, when life changed without warning. It began silently, during a routine checkup. Doctors discovered a small, symptomless lump in her left breast. Rebecca wasn't worried at first, but after additional tests, the word stage 1 breast cancer shattered her world. Surgery to remove the tumor was only the beginning of a long and punishing journey. Chemotherapy quickly drained her strength. Her hair fell out, her skin grew dry, and her once vibrant face became thin and tired. At charity events, she wrapped scarves around her head to hide the toll treatment had taken. Constant chest pain made every breath heavy, every conversation an act of will. Since her diagnosis, Rebecca has stepped back from the public eye, yet she never stepped back from her family. Despite the pain, she remained a devoted wife and mother, continuing to support Terry quietly from the shadows. Every movement, every inhale was a challenge, but she pressed on, even as fear the disease's return lingered like a constant shadow. In a candid 2025 post, Rebecca revealed the silent battles she fought each day just to keep her family whole. Battles marked by exhaustion few could ever understand. Recent photos show her moving slowly, her hands trembling from fatigue, her frame noticeably frail, but her eyes still shine with a strength that refuses to break. Rebecca's fight against breast cancer is more than a medical struggle. It is a testament to extraordinary resilience, a woman standing tall in the face of a merciless enemy, refusing surrender. Tamika Catchings was once a blazing force in the WNBA, her fire undeniable on and off the court, a beloved Indiana Fever icon and the powerful voice behind uplifting podcasts. She inspired countless fans with her energy and optimism. But in 2024, everything changed. A sudden wave of intense chest pain and swollen lymph nodes, symptoms she brushed off as routine sports wear and tear, led to a devastating diagnosis: stage 4 breast cancer. Treatment became a battle of its own. Chemotherapy and targeted therapy, though vital, stripped her strength day by day. Tamika lost 26 pounds. Her skin darkened. Her hair fell out in handfuls. She began wearing hats during podcast recordings, her once steady voice now thin and fragile, often interrupted by breathlessness. Every episode became a test of endurance as relentless bone pain gnawed at her. She quietly stepped away from public sports appearances, choosing remote broadcasts instead. Fear of the cancer's progression pushed her further into the shadows, yet she never stopped showing up for others. Even as her body weakened, she continued mentoring kids and supporting charitable work, determined to remain a source of light. Tamika Catchings may have been battered by illness, but she never stopped fighting, for herself and for everyone who looked to her as a symbol of strength. Regina King, an Oscar winner celebrated for her Beale Street Could Talk and her powerhouse performance in Watchmen, stands as a symbol of unmatched strength and grace. But in 2022, her light flickered when she confronted an unexpected enemy: a stage 1 liver cancer diagnosis. What began as mild abdominal discomfort and a hint of jaundice was first dismissed as stress from overwhelming personal grief, until the symptoms refused to fade and the truth struck hard. Surgery to remove part of her liver, followed by grueling chemotherapy, left her physically drained. Her weight fell from 128 to 99 pounds. Her once radiant complexion dimmed, and the exhaustion in her eyes revealed countless sleepless nights. Quietly fighting her battle, she stepped away from major acting roles, shifting her focus to directing. Yet even that became difficult as recurring pain and relentless fatigue forced her to cancel key meetings. By late 2024, photos from a public appearance told a heartbreaking story. Regina, visibly fragile, leaning on others for support, her voice soft but steady. And still, she refused to disappear. Instead, she chose to share her journey in silence and strength, championing hope and lifting up community-driven film projects. Even in vulnerability, her spirit remained unshaken. Anika Noni Rose, the unforgettable voice behind Disney's first Black princess, was once a beacon of talent, strength, and radiant charm. Beloved for her role as Laurel Robinson in Dreamgirls and celebrated as the enchanting Tiana in The Princess and the Frog, she seemed unstoppable. But in 2021, a storm far harsher than anything her career had ever thrown at her arrived, a stage 2 cervical cancer diagnosis. What began as pelvic pain and irregular bleeding was brushed off as the cause of a relentless schedule. Only when the symptoms grew unbearable did she face the devastating truth. Surgery to remove part of her cervix, followed by rounds of intense radiation, drained her physically and emotionally. She lost nearly 20 pounds. Her skin paled, her hair thinned, and wigs became her quiet armor whenever she stepped into the public eye. By 2024, Anika had scaled back her work, taking on only small roles as recurring pelvic pain and bone-deep fatigue made long filming days nearly impossible. A 2024 expose captured her walking slowly, eyes sunken, her once vibrant presence dimmed by illness, a haunting reminder of the battle consuming her life. And yet, even weakened, she refused to disappear. Anika poured what energy she had into community projects, using her voice, the same one that inspired millions, to speak openly about her fight. In her vulnerability, she offered something just as powerful as her art, a message of courage, resilience, and unbroken spirit. Takina Arnold, the woman whose radiant smile and razor-sharp wit lit up our screens, never seemed like someone who could be brought to her knees. Beloved as Rochelle in Everybody Hates Chris and Pam James on Martin, she was known for her bold personality and comedic brilliance. But nothing prepared fans for the devastating turn her life took in 2023, a battle with stomach cancer. What began as severe abdominal pain and constant nausea, symptoms she shrugged off as food poisoning, soon revealed a harsher reality. Tests confirmed the diagnosis, shattering the world she'd built. Surgery to remove part of her stomach and rounds of chemotherapy left her physically drained. Her appearance changed dramatically. Darkened skin, dwindling strength, and unrelenting nausea became daily struggles. Even during podcast recordings, she often had to pause just to catch her breath. From mid-2023 onward, Takina quietly stepped back from major television projects, choosing smaller roles and focusing on her podcast work instead. The effects of her illness were visible. Trembling hands gripping the mic, a softening voice, and exhaustion etched into her expression. Though she rarely spoke publicly about her condition, close friends could see the weight she carried. Yet through it all, Takina held on to hope. With remarkable resilience, she continued to share positivity and encouragement on social media, inspiring countless fans even in her darkest moments. She was a soul legend, a woman whose voice once wrapped the world in warmth. Timeless songs like Walk On by echoing across generations. For decades, music was a devotion, her gift, the place where she left pieces of her heart for millions to hold. But in 2023, everything changed. A relentless illness crept into her life, turning subtle abdominal aches and unexplained weight loss into something far more sinister. What doctors first dismissed as the effects of age soon revealed a devastating truth. Early-stage pancreatic cancer. The diagnosis shattered her world. Surgery took part of her pancreas. Chemotherapy took even more. Her strength, her glow, her effortless grace. Her weight dropped from 137 to 115 pounds. Her once radiant skin turned pale, her hair thinned, and the lively spark in her eyes dimmed beneath exhaustion. Touring became impossible. By late 2023, she stepped back from the stage entirely, appearing only for the occasional podcast or charity event. Her voice grew softer, her movements slower. Sometimes she needed an arm to steady her. Photos that surfaced on Reddit in 2024 left fans heartbroken. And yet she endured. Even as fear flickered behind her eyes, she poured what energy she had into music education charities, determined to give back to the art form that had shaped her life. Her body weakened, but her spirit refused to surrender. Pat Mitchell, the legendary producer behind cultural touchstones like TED Talks, PBS specials, and groundbreaking HBO projects, spent her life elevating voices and building community. Her work earned her admiration across the industry. But in 2024, everything changed. What began as persistent hip pain spiraled into a devastating diagnosis: stage 2 bone cancer. Doctors first suspected arthritis, but as the pain intensified, the truth could no longer be denied. Treatment was grueling. Chemotherapy and radiation stripped 18 pounds from her frame, drained the color from her skin, and left her relying on a cane to move through the day. By early 2024, Pat quietly stepped back from major projects. She still showed up for smaller gatherings when she could, usually seated, her once bright energy dimmed by exhaustion. Each appearance revealed tired eyes and a body fighting harder than most people knew. She never made a public announcement about her illness, but in a rare, gentle moment during an interview, she acknowledged the truth: the days when the pain was so sharp she couldn't stand, and the quiet fear of what might come next. Adwoa Aboah, the fashion force fighting a silent storm. Adwoa Aboah, the magnetic model and actress known for Top Boy and countless Vogue campaigns, had always dazzled with her bold style and unfiltered honesty. But in this reimagined story, her world takes a sharp turn in 2023. What began as simple fatigue, low fevers, and swollen lymph nodes, symptoms she brushed off as stress, soon unraveled into a devastating diagnosis: stage 2 lymphoma. Aggressive treatment drained her physically. She shed nearly 15 pounds, her skin paled, her hair thinned into fragile patches. Scars hid what she could. Quiet strength hid what she couldn't. By 2024, Adwoa appeared only sparingly, mostly at intimate community events. Her slow steps and hushed voice told a story her smile tried to soften. Even as her health faltered, her commitment to mental health advocacy never wavered. In a short, rare 2024 post, she shared glimpses of the fight she was quietly enduring, proof that even warriors have fragile days. Patti LaBelle, a legendary voice battling the unimaginable. In this fictional portrayal, Patti LaBelle, the powerhouse behind Lady Marmalade and one of music's most electrifying performers, faces an unexpected enemy in 2023. Persistent throat pain and difficulty swallowing, once blamed on grueling tour schedules, reveals something far worse: esophageal cancer. Radiation and surgical procedures leave their marks. A 20-pound weight loss, darkened skin, and strained, raspy voice that betrays the fire she was once known for. Tours are canceled. Stages grow quieter. At charity events, she still appears, but each performance demands pauses, breaths, recovery. Her once boundless energy now battles waves of chest pain and the daily hardship of simply eating. Fans are heartbroken by her weakened frame in 2024, but Patti remains unshakable. Even as her voice trembles, her spirit refuses to bend. She pours her heart into music programs, determined to give back, determined to fight. Grace Jones, the fearless icon confronting her greatest test. Grace Jones has always embodied audacity. Her avant-garde fashion, her commanding presence in Conan the Destroyer and Boomerang, her unmistakable voice. But in this imagined journey, life delivers a blow even she could not see coming. By 2022, sharp back pain and blood in the urine begin as quiet warnings. Dismissed at first as aging or overexertion, they eventually lead to a staggering discovery: stage 2 kidney cancer. Part of her left kidney is removed. Chemotherapy follows. The transformation is swift: a 22-pound weight loss, persistent pain, and the eventual need for a cane. Tours stop. Large projects fade to the background. Grace turns inward, channeling what energy she has into small personal creations. Her once fierce posture grows fragile, her movements slow and deliberate. Yet even in frailty, the spark of the artist remains. Grace fights not just for her health, but for her identity. Behind every glamorous facade can live unimaginable battles. These portraits remind us that strength isn't only found in spotlight moments. It's found in the quiet, grueling, unseen fights that shape who we become. 13 Black actresses who gave birth to severely disabled children, a truly heartbreaking story. Every mother dreams of welcoming a child into the world whole and healthy. But picture this. You cradle your newborn for the very first time, and then a doctor, with a voice void of warmth, tells you this child will never walk, will never speak. For most people, that single moment feels like a life sentence. But what many don't know is that even some of Hollywood's brightest black actresses, women who once lit up the silver screen, praised as icons and goddesses, were forced to face this very nightmare. Behind the glamour, behind the applause, they carried a pain no camera could ever capture. These were stories the press buried for decades. And today, we reveal the heartbreaking truth about 13 legendary black actresses whose lives were forever scarred by the cruel afflictions their children were born with. Dorothy Dandridge, the daughter who never once heard the word mother. When people speak of Dorothy, they recall the first black woman ever nominated for an Oscar, the radiant beauty of Carmen Jones, a trailblazer draped in Hollywood glow. But behind that shimmering curtain lay a silent, merciless tragedy. It began on September 2nd, 1943, in a Los Angeles delivery room. Dorothy had just welcomed her first child, Hari Lynn Suzanne Nicholas, born from her marriage to legendary dancer Harold Nicholas. The proud father beamed, holding the newborn in his arms. But only hours later, a doctor stepped in quietly, carrying a voice heavy as a verdict. The baby had suffered oxygen loss. Her brain was damaged. She would never develop normally. The words meant Hari Lynn would never speak, never dress herself, never understand letters or the world around her. Her mind would remain forever at the level of an infant. Dorothy lay in her hospital bed, cradling her tiny daughter, eyes trembling as they studied the baby's fragile face. Harold's cries were thin, broken, and though no one dared say it aloud, everyone understood this child would never call Dorothy mother. As the years passed, the wound only deepened. Other children learned to run, to read, to laugh and shout, but Hari Lynn could not speak, could not tie her shoes, could not recognize even the faces of those who loved her. She required constant care. Every meal, every bath, every moment depended on someone else. Dorothy once confided to a friend, "All I want, just once, is to hear my child call me mother." But the silence answered her every day. Backstage, whispers formed into rumors. Some claimed they saw Dorothy standing outside the gates of a psychiatric institution, admission papers trembling in her hand. With a single signature, she could walk away, return to the spotlight, reclaim her rising stardom. Instead, she broke down, clutching her daughter, turning away from the gates. She chose Hari Lynn, knowing Hollywood would not choose her back. And it didn't. Studios refused to gamble on a star carrying such a burden. Harold Nicholas, the child's father, eventually walked away too. Night after night, Dorothy sang in dimly lit clubs, her face painted bright, her voice quivering beneath a practiced smile. And every night she returned to her small apartment, slipping off her heels before entering the dark room where Hari Lynn sat alone. Vacant eyes lifted toward her mother, never forming a word. The contrast was a knife, dazzling stage lights outside, crushing silence at home. Two worlds pressing down on one woman. Then came September 8th, 1965. Dorothy was found lifeless in her Hollywood Hills apartment, only 42 years old. Officially, they said it was an overdose of antidepressants. But those who truly knew her whispered that Dorothy had begun dying years earlier, on the day she realized her child would never call her mother. Hari Lynn lived on, but only as a shadow. After Dorothy's death, she was placed in a long-term care facility. Day after day, she sat in an old chair, her hands twisted, her eyes empty as they stared out a window, unaware she was a daughter of a Hollywood legend. In 2003, Hari Lynn passed away quietly. No headlines, no public mourning, not even a whisper in the press. Holly Robinson Peete, a cruel prophecy and an unbelievable miracle. From the heartbreak of Dorothy's story, we turn to another, one that begins in Hollywood but finds its deepest shadows inside a mother's home. Holly Robinson Peete, the beloved actress from 21, Jump Street, and later a respected advocate for social causes, seemed to have it all. But in 1997, fate delivered a challenge far greater than any role she had ever played. That year, Holly and her husband, NFL quarterback Rodney Peete, welcomed their first son, Rodney R.J. Peete Jr. He was perfect, bright-eyed, beautiful, a baby whose gaze seemed to smile. But by the time R.J. turned 3, The Pete family's life swerved into unimaginable territory. During what should have been a routine checkup, the doctor crouched down, studied the little boy, and then spoke the words that hit like a splash of ice water. Your son is on the autism spectrum. He will never speak. He will never communicate like other children. Holly said she felt herself freeze. Tears blurred her vision as she watched her son sit with his back turned, repeating the same motion over and over, making scattered sounds that seemed to disappear into the air. RJ wouldn't look at her. He didn't answer when she called his name. Loud noises sent him into panic. Sometimes, in moments of overwhelming frustration, he hit his head until bruises formed, behavior that shattered Holly's heart again and again. For years, the Pete family fought tirelessly. Behavioral therapy, physical therapy, speech specialists, endless appointments that felt like shouting into the desert. Rumors even surfaced that Holly sold parts of her assets just to afford dozens of therapy hours every week, all for the chance to hear her son say just one word, Mommy. No one, not even the doctors, could have predicted what happened next. Defying every cold prognosis, RJ slowly began to speak. His words were hesitant at first, but real. He started making eye contact. He learned to express joy, frustration, love. He grew, he blossomed, and eventually, he stepped into the world as a young man with a future. Today, the boy once declared will never speak works for the Los Angeles Dodgers, one of America's most iconic baseball teams. The sight of RJ in his Dodgers uniform, smiling, shy but proud, became a beacon of hope for thousands of families raising children on the autism spectrum. Out of their private pain, Holly and Rodney built a public mission. The Holly Rod Foundation, founded in 1997, has grown into one of the nation's most impactful organizations supporting autistic children and their families. Holly once said, "If my son doesn't have a voice, then I will be his voice, and the voice for every child like him." Yet even with the miracle, a scar remains. Holly remembers the years when her son couldn't show affection, the nights he screamed until dawn, the sickening thud of his small head hitting the wall in despair. These are the truths only a mother knows. To love unconditionally, to hope relentlessly, and to live with a wound that never fully heals. Toni Braxton. Two sentences that shattered a mother's world. If Holly still carried a flicker of hope, then Toni Braxton, the iconic diva of the 1990s, was struck by two brutal truths at once, turning the joy of motherhood into a lifelong ache. On March 31st, 2003, in a Los Angeles hospital, Toni welcomed her second son, Diesel. In that moment, it felt as if heaven itself had opened. But a few years later, heaven fell silent. When Diesel turned 3, a doctor looked Toni straight in the eye. Every word hit like a hammer. Your son is autistic. He will never communicate like a typical child. Toni went still, clutching her little boy as if someone had ripped open her chest. But the nightmare didn't stop with autism. Diesel also had a heart defect. Some nights, Toni woke to the sound of his struggling breaths. Her little boy lay on the bed, face pale, lips turning blue, chest rising and falling like a fragile bird on its last strength. She would scoop him up, race to the hospital with tears streaming, begging the universe, "Don't take my baby. Please, just let him live." On stage, Toni dazzled, glittering gowns, radiant smiles, a voice that soared across arenas. But backstage, she slipped off her heels and crumbled into a quiet shadow. Countless times she sat alone in her dressing room, mascara streaking down her cheeks, gripping her phone as another message came. Diesel had suffered another cardiac spasm. Every time, she was forced to choose: the roaring audience outside, or the child fighting between life and death. In her 2014 memoir, Unbreak My Heart, Toni confessed that she once believed it was punishment. She whispered, "Maybe God is punishing me for my past abortion. Maybe my sentence is to watch the child I kept suffer his whole life." That confession wasn't just regret. It was a raw cry of a mother who feared that her own past had written her child's fate in pain. Diesel is still here. He grows. He learns. But for Toni, every day is a battle, one no fame, fortune, or spotlight can ever erase. No matter how beautifully she sings, no matter how brightly the world shines on her, it can never lift the shadow she fears is forever hovering over her son. Halle Berry, the woman the world saw glowing beneath Hollywood's brightest lights, was also a mother quietly drowning in her own tears. She was the first black woman to win the Academy Award for Best Actress for Monsters Ball, forever etched into the public imagination as a goddess. Powerful, alluring, untouchable. But behind the red carpet shimmer, Halle carried a wound the world knew nothing about, a private heartbreak tied to the little girl she loved more than life itself. On March 16, 2008, Halle welcomed her first child, Nala Ariel Aubrey, with model Gabriel Aubrey. To the press, Nala's birth was a fairy tale, a beautiful baby born into privilege and paparazzi flashbulbs. But behind the gates of her mansion, Halle faced a reality she could barely admit even to herself. From infancy, Nala showed unusual signs. Rumors began circulating that she didn't react to sound the way other babies did. When Halle called her name, she would just stare into the distance, never turning her head. She slept poorly, screamed for hours, and sometimes sat completely still, as if locked inside a world of her own. A doctor eventually delivered the words that shattered her. Your daughter may have a rare developmental disorder. It could affect her communication and ability to adapt for the rest of her life. Halle felt the room spin. She refused to believe her baby could face such a fate. Crew members later whispered that in 2012, during the filming of Cloud Atlas, Halle suddenly vanished from the set. They found her alone on the dressing room floor, clutching her phone, her face streaked with tears. She had just learned that Nala needed more intensive therapy. The crew quietly backed away, giving the broken mother her moment of collapse. On screen, Halle Berry was a warrior. In real life, she was a mother holding herself together with shaking hands. Her custody battle with Gabriel Aubrey erupted in 2010 after their breakup. The media framed it as a fight over custody and child support, but beneath the headlines was a deeper conflict: Nala's medical care. Halle spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on world-class specialists, while Gabriel resisted, dismissing it all as unnecessary. The public saw only Halle leaving court with a stone-cold expression. What they didn't see were the winter nights she spent kneeling beside her daughter's bed, whispering prayers for just one normal tomorrow. Now a teenager, Nala is completely shielded from the spotlight. Halle rarely speaks of her struggles, but those close to her say her fear never fully left. Anytime her daughter grows quiet for too long, Halle's hands tremble, terrified that every step forward could vanish in an instant. It turns out the invincible Halle Berry the world worships is, beneath it all, simply a mother with a bleeding heart. Oprah Winfrey, the fragile child who carried a lifetime of ghosts. Many people know that Oprah Winfrey, born in 1954 and destined to become America's queen of media, rose from a childhood scarred by hardship. But buried within those shadows is a tragedy that never loosened its grip on her life: the death of her firstborn son when she was only a teenager. It was the winter of 1968 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 14-year-old Oprah, pregnant and terrified, walked into a local hospital alone. No mother's embrace, no comforting voice, no family waiting outside the door. The baby arrived too early. A single weak cry broke through the hospital's sterile silence, then slipped away. When doctors placed the infant in an incubator, his tiny body was already turning blue, lungs struggling, heartbeat erratic, brain starved of oxygen. In that cold white room, filled with antiseptic and humming machines, Oprah curled into herself on the hospital bed, staring at nothing. Nurses whispered, "The baby won't make it." They were right. Only a few days later, the little boy, never given an official name, took his final breath. A white cloth was gently laid across his still body, ending a life that had barely begun. Oprah held the small blanket, tears slipping silently down her face. It wasn't just the loss of an infant. It was the loss of her childhood, her innocence, her fragile belief that life might someday be kind. The wound ran so deep that Oprah later confessed she never wanted to have children again. And while she went on to build a media empire and inspire millions around the world, a quiet shadow remained in her heart: the memory of a child lost in the winter of 1968. Lupita Nyong'o, a seizure in the night that changed everything. It was a story the world never knew, one that echoed a tragedy from decades earlier. Lupita Nyong'o, the Kenyan-born actress who rose to global fame after winning an Oscar for 12 Years a Slave in 2013, appeared radiant, confident, and unbreakable. To the public, she was strength and inspiration personified. But behind the spotlight, Lupita carried a memory she never dared to share. On a warm July night in 2015, laughter filled a family home in Nairobi. No one could have guessed how quickly joy would shatter. A deafening crash split the air. Bang! A child hit the cold tile floor. The small body convulsed violently, arms twisting, legs jerking, eyes rolling back as foam spilled from the mouth. Adults screamed. Children cried. Panic swallowed the room whole. Lupita rushed forward. All traces of Hollywood glamour gone in an instant. The Oscar winner collapsed to the floor, cradling the child against her chest. Her tears soaked the little one's skin. Her voice broke into a desperate scream. "Don't leave me. Don't leave your mother." Someone whispered tremulously in the chaos. "That's not just her niece. Maybe that's the child she's been hiding all these years." The car tore through Nairobi's night streets. Lupita clutched the child, her heart thundering. Another seizure racked the tiny body. Then stillness. The heart stopped. Silence swallowed the car. Lupita shook the child frantically. "Baby, baby, listen to me. Don't leave your mama." In that moment, the world didn't see a movie star. They wouldn't have recognized her anyway. All that remained was a mother drowning in terror. Rumors of secret child, rumors she never confirmed, grew darker than ever. At the hospital, doctors delivered the blow, a rare neurological syndrome capable of triggering sudden, violent seizures, each one potentially fatal. For Lupita, all the red carpets, all the awards, all the headlines faded into nothing. Her thriving career halted overnight. Productions were canceled. The media speculated wildly. But only Lupita knew the truth as she sat for hours beside a hospital bed, fingers wrapped around a fragile hand, praying for each heartbeat to find its way back. From that night in Nairobi onward, Lupita carried a wound she never spoke of. She continued to shine on screen, dazzling millions, but behind every smile lurked a memory that refused to fade. The violent thrum of seizures in the dark, the chilling silence of a heart stilling in her arms, and the fear that one day, the child she loved might never open her eyes again. Stephanie Mills. When the world fell silent for Farrod, Lupita chose secrecy. But Stephanie Mills chose a different path. Born in 1957 in Brooklyn, New York, Stephanie Mills was a powerhouse soul singer who lit up Broadway in The Wiz in 1975. At the dawn of the 21st century, she was at the peak of her career, until life delivered its most personal blow. On January 31st, 2001, in a hospital in Charlotte, North Carolina, Stephanie gave birth to her only child, Farrod J. Mills. A doctor walked in with a heavy voice. "Your baby shows signs of Down syndrome." A moment that should have been pure joy shattered her from the inside. In the months that followed, Stephanie noticed every difference. Farrod's round face, almond-shaped eyes, and tiny hands with broad fingers, all classic indicators of Down syndrome. While friends bragged about their babies crawling, babbling, and racing through milestones, Farrod often sat quietly, occasionally letting out a sweet, innocent laugh as his eyes drifted into space. Some nights were terrifying. He struggled to breathe, his lips turning blue from congenital heart issues common in children with Down syndrome. Stephanie would rush him to nearby hospitals, crying, begging doctors to save him. In a 2010 Good Morning America interview, she confessed, "The day I got the diagnosis, I thought my career was over. I wasn't Stephanie Mills, the performer, anymore. I was just a panicked mother." She turned down international tours, some worth millions, just to stay close to her son. But instead of hiding him from the world, Stephanie chose to walk beside him during later concerts. She brought Farrod on stage with her. He would stand softly in the corner, clapping slowly along to the rhythm, and audiences would break into tears. Behind her soaring vocals, people could hear the deeper truth. A mother who traded global fame for unconditional love. love for a boy named Farid. Sherry Shepard, fragile breaths. Behind the glass, the world knew Sherry as the quick-witted queen of comedy on The View. But behind the punchlines and the bright studio lights was a new mother whose heart had just been split open. On April 22, 2005, in Los Angeles, Jeffrey Charles Tarpley Jr. entered the world weighing only 2.5 pounds. He was so impossibly tiny that his mother couldn't even hold him. Instead, her newborn son lay fighting for life inside an incubator, surrounded by a forest of cold wires and blinking monitors. His first days were measured not in milestones, but in the steady hiss of respirators and the harsh neon glow of the NICU. Doctors cautioned her gently. Even if he made it through the crisis, he might face lifelong developmental challenges. Sherry stood outside the incubator, her face pressed to the glass, praying for a strong, healthy cry. All she could hear were the soft, fragile breaths of a child she wasn't sure she'd get to bring home. Back then, tabloids whispered that Sherry was throwing herself into non-stop work just to keep up with the crushing hospital bills. Later, she admitted the truth. I had no choice. I had to do whatever it took to keep my son alive. Jeffrey did grow more slowly than other kids, but to Sherry, every tiny step, every new word, every victory was a miracle, and she never stopped thanking God for each one. Gladys Knight. The world knows her as the Empress of Soul, the golden voice behind timeless classics. But behind those soaring notes lived a mother carrying a silent, lifelong heartbreak. That heartbreak began the very day she welcomed her son, Shauna Hankerson, into the world in 1973. Moments after his birth, the doctor's face fell. He leaned in and murmured, "There's something wrong with his heart." Shauna had been born with a severe congenital defect, one that would require multiple surgeries just to keep him alive. While crowds roared for Gladys in packed theaters, she often sat shivering in hospital waiting rooms. Still wrapped in her stage clothes, her hands clasped so tight they trembled. In her memoir she later wrote, "I sang for the world, but my heart was trembling for my little boy on that operating table, his tiny chest split open." Shanga's childhood became a revolving door of hospital visits. One stormy night in Atlanta, Gladys drove straight from a performance, stage makeup still on her face, to find her son lying unconscious, for lines snaking across his small arms. The diva who could silence a room with a single note sat quietly weeping, swallowing her sobs so she wouldn't wake him. But fate had even harsher plans. Adulthood brought Shauna not just a weakened heart, but addiction and public scandal. In 2016, headlines erupted. His restaurant chain had collapsed, and he was accused of tax evasion. To the world, it was a disgrace. To Gladys Knight, it was a second blade twisting in the same wound. The boy she once fought to keep alive was now destroying himself. In her 70s, Gladys confessed through tears, "I gave everything to keep my son with me, but he became a man I no longer recognize." A legendary diva, an immortal voice. Yet her heart remains tethered to two painful images: her baby on an operating table and the grown man lost in the shadows of his own undoing. No melody can soothe that ache. No spotlight can hide it. Nicole Ari Parker, the emergency surgery that changed everything. Even her daughter's first cry was stolen from her. Born in 1970, the beloved star of soul food and brown sugar had always imagined motherhood would feel like heaven. But on a morning in 2005 in Atlanta, that dream shattered into a race against death. Her daughter, Sophie Nakili Kojo, entered the world with a terrifying lesion along her back. Spina bifida, a condition that left her spinal cord exposed. In an instant, all joy vanished. Instead of being placed on her mother's chest, Sophie was rushed into emergency surgery. Nicole hadn't even touched her baby before hearing the doctor bark, "Scalpel now." Rumors later swirled that Nicole blamed herself for working too hard during pregnancy. But out of that pain, she and her husband, Boris Kojo, created Sophie's Voice Foundation in 2008, transforming trauma into a mission that would help thousands of families. Sophie survived, fragile, yet fiercely resilient. A living reminder that some children enter this world already fighting for their very first breath. Cheryl Lee Ralph, When the bright lights of Broadway faded, a far darker night fell over Sheryl Lee Ralph's life. The beloved star of Dreamgirls, born in 1956, saw her world dim not on stage, but in a Los Angeles emergency room in 2003. Her only son, Etienne Maurice, just 11 years old, had been in a devastating car accident. The crash hurled his head against a window, leaving him comatose, his small skull wrapped in layers of bandages. Ralph collapsed the moment she saw him lying motionless under the surgical lights, the quiet broken only by the cold, rhythmic beep of a heart monitor. Weeks later, Etienne finally opened his eyes, but the relief was short-lived. Brain trauma lingered like a shadow. Seizures, memory lapses, weakness that stole pieces of the child he had been. Then, before the family could catch their breath, tragedy struck again. Etienne became the victim of a violent robbery, suffering yet another blow to the head. Pain upon pain reshaped Ralph's life, turning her from celebrated artist into fierce community advocate. Etienne eventually recovered and grew into a filmmaker, but for his mother, the image of her son lying breathless, tethered to tubes and machines, is a nightmare no spotlight can ever erase. Della Reese, when the real angel was taken away. The most heartbreaking story belongs to Della Reese, born in 1931. The legendary jazz and gospel singer who later warmed millions of hearts as a gentle celestial guide on Touched by an Angel. But life dealt her a cruel irony. Off-screen, her own angel was being taken from her. Her adopted daughter, Dolores Daniels Owens, suffered from a rare and relentless pituitary disease that slowly ravaged her body. She grew fragile, unsteady, sometimes collapsing after only a few steps. Sudden spasms twisted through her limbs, her joints buckling, her body trembling and drenched in cold sweat. Hormone injections became a daily ritual, her thin arms covered in fading bruises. Throughout the 1990s, fans wonder why Reese disappeared from the stage. The truth was far more brutal. She spent her days in harsh hospital lighting, sitting on cold plastic chairs, eyes locked on beeping monitors, praying her daughter would survive just one more attack. Some nights, still wearing stage makeup, she rushed straight from performance to hold her daughter's fevered hand. The woman who once sang comfort into the world was powerless against her child's suffering. On March 13, 2002, in Detroit, fate delivered its final blow. In a silent white hospital room, Owens exhaled one last trembling breath and fell still. Reese collapsed beside her, clutching her daughter's cooling face, wailing with the raw anguish only a mother can know. "You're gone. What reason do I have to live now?" Her cries echoed down the corridor as doctors and nurses bowed their heads. Whispers later claimed Reese had turned down major contracts, walking away from fame to be present for her daughter's final days. To the world, she remained the angel who brought hope to millions. But for Della Reese, the only angel who truly mattered left her on that March morning, leaving behind a void no applause, no glory, no spotlight could ever fill. Tamara Tooney, the premature baby who never had the chance to grow whole. Closing this list is a name many know from Law and Order, SVU, Tamara Tooney. In May 1997, she walked into a Manhattan delivery room, trembling with hope. But instead of the powerful newborn cries she longed to hear, there came only faint, broken breaths. Her son arrived weighing barely over 2 pounds. His skin was so translucent you could trace every vein. His tiny chest rose and felt like it might crack under the pressure of existing. He wasn't placed on her chest. He was taken immediately, whisked away, sealed inside a cold incubator, swallowed by wires and machines. Tamara lay in bed, arms empty, listening to the unending pulse of monitors. Later, she would say, "In that moment, I knew I had lost the right to become a mother in the most natural way." For months, Tamara lived 2 separate lives. By day, she delivered sharp lines and unshakable confidence on set, portraying tough prosecutors with steel in her eyes. But the moment the director yelled cut, she raced to the hospital. There, she sat for hours beside the incubator, her trembling palm pressed to the glass, watching her son's frail fingers twitch weakly. He grew, but never in the way a child should. His eyes never focused, drifting instead into vacant distance. His hands never grasped, only fluttered in shaky, uncontrolled motions. When she called his name, there was no recognition, no response, only broken, fragile sounds. Tamara once admitted, "As an actress, I can memorize hundreds of pages of dialogue, but with my son, I couldn't find a single word that could save him." By 2003, she quietly revealed she had turned down major Hollywood roles, opportunities that could have changed her life, just to remain at his bedside, guarding his restless sleep. While stage lights burned bright outside, Tamara chose the sterile glow of a hospital room, listening to her child's thin breaths blend with the beeping of machines. From that point on, she carried a different destiny. No longer just a star on screen, but a mother trapped in the most heartbreaking role of her life, the role of someone utterly powerless to heal her child. Looking back on these stories, one painful truth stands out. Hollywood's glamour was a curtain that hid tears which never dried. So many black actresses who once mesmerized audiences lived instead in the shadows of hospital hallways, beside children fighting silent, impossible battles. They lost the joy of motherhood at its most sacred beginning. What do you think of these hidden tragedies? Share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel to uncover more untold, heartbreaking stories of Hollywood's legends. 7 black R&B legends gifted by God, but whose lives were horrifyingly snatched away by the devil. Some people are born with talent, but these 7? Their voices were explosive, otherworldly, almost too powerful for any human throat. In black churches, there was only one whispered explanation: God touched them. But that's exactly where the nightmare begins. Because every one of them, every single God-kissed prodigy, fell in ways too violent, too bizarre, too sudden to be brushed off as coincidence. We're talking murder, paranoia, drug spirals, death scenes that felt staged, bodies found in positions that looked ritualistic, careers collapsing with the weight of a curse. And behind each downfall, witnesses repeated the same chilling line: a gift that's strong never comes for free. So what if their success wasn't just talent? What if something darker signed the other side of the contract? Tonight, we unseal the hidden files of 7 R&B legends whose rise felt divine, and whose destruction looked like the devil coming to collect his debt. Sam Cooke, the angel voice heaven sent, and hell came to reclaim. We start with a man whose voice was so pure people swore it leaked straight out of heaven. Sam Cooke didn't just sing, he stopped the world cold. Yet the way his life ended, violent, suspicious, eerily precise, left a shadow so deep that many still believe his voice was the first gift heaven gave and the first one hell demanded back. Sam Cooke's story begins in blinding light and ends in a darkness no one has ever fully understood. To see why people believed he was chosen, you have to go back to Southside Chicago in the late 1930s, when the Great Depression still hung like smoke over black neighborhoods, and the church was the only place where hope didn't feel like a luxury. Inside the Church of Christ, on a freezing January morning in 1937, a 6-year-old boy was lifted onto a wooden crate so the congregation could see him. The moment he opened his mouth, the room went silent. His voice didn't sound like a child's. It was bright, resonant, impossibly controlled. The kind of sound old women said only comes from people God touches before they're born. By 10 years old, Sam had a reputation. Churchgoers called his tone a halo voice, a glow you heard rather than saw. Mississippi transplants said he sounded like the great revival singers of the Delta era, men rumored to preach with angels standing behind them. The way Sam shifted from a whisper to a gospel shout to a floating falsetto, without losing pitch, made choir directors shake their heads. To them, Sam Cooke wasn't talented. He was anointed. Through the 1940s and early 50s, his rise in gospel was unstoppable. When he joined the Soul Stirrers, crowds ballooned beyond capacity. People crossed state lines just to hear him hold a note so clean and so perfect listeners described a warmth rushing over him like static from a Holy Spirit. Musicians couldn't explain how he bent breath, tone, and emotion into one seamless line. Fans had a simpler name for it, the God flow, but gifts like that always lead to crossroads. In 1957, Sam made the choice that split his life in two. He left gospel for R&B. To the entertainment world, it was genius. To black church communities, it was nothing short of betrayal. Pastors condemned him from their pulpits. Church papers called him the one who walked away from God. Former fans whispered that something in his presence felt different. Not darker, but heavier, like the glow around him had shifted into something the church didn't even have a word for. Outside the church, though, the world embraced him instantly. Between 1960 and 1963, Sam became the face of modern black music. His songs were smooth but forceful, intimate yet spiritual, like a gospel singer dropped into the heart of America's pop machine. Still, the higher he climbed, the more the people closest to him noticed the weight he carried. He drank more. He paced backstage alone. He stared into mirrors too long, as if trying to recognize a man looking back. Then came the night of December 11th, 1964, at the Hacienda Motel in Los Angeles. The moment that turned a blessed life into a national mystery. The official story claimed Sam Cooke was shot by the motel manager after a chaotic misunderstanding. But nothing about the scene made sense. The timeline didn't match. Witnesses contradicted one another. His clothes, his injuries, the room itself. Everything looked too neat, too arranged, too quiet for the violent struggle described on paper. Police photos showed Sam lying on his back, one shoe missing, eyes half open as if frozen in disbelief. Within days, rumors swept through black communities across America. Musicians whispered he'd been followed. Friends insisted he'd been targeted. Activists believed his growing involvement in civil rights made him dangerous. And church members who remembered the boy who once sang about God with tears in their eyes said something far darker. A gift that powerful never comes free. One day, somebody comes to collect. Whether Sam Cooke died by conspiracy, by chaos, or by fate, no one knows. But to this day, people still say the same thing. Sam was born with a voice from heaven, and the world took it back like a debt. Ray Charles, the man who heard God and something more. People used to say Ray didn't need eyes, because whatever guided his music was larger than sight itself. The haunting truth is that the same gift that lifted him up nearly destroyed him. Ray Charles Robinson entered the world on September 23, 1930, in Albany, Georgia, a place where poverty clung to black families as heavy as summer heat. By age 5, Ray could already pull melodies out of a piano with an instinct that seemed almost otherworldly. 2 years later, in 1937, an infection stole his vision forever. Darkness swallowed his world, but in that darkness, something extraordinary awakened. Ray developed absolute pitch, an ability so rare that even classically trained musicians spend a lifetime chasing it. Ray didn't study music. He lived inside it. In the late 1930s, he started attending a tiny Baptist church in Greenville, Florida. No one knew what to make of the blind boy, who could copy any hymn after hearing it once. The pastor reportedly told Ray's mother, "Your boy doesn't see the Lord, but he hears him." Every Sunday morning, Ray sat in the front pew, head tilted back, listening to the vibrations of every voice, every organ note, as if the church itself were speaking to him. People said he was touched by God, a child with an old soul and a knowing far beyond his years. Throughout the 1940s, Ray practiced piano up to 12 hours a day. He navigated the keyboard not by touch, but by sound, a kind of synesthetic mapping almost no musician on earth could replicate. By 1947, he moved to Seattle and began weaving gospel spiritual cries with the raw sensuality of the blues. To traditional believers, blending the sacred with the sinful wasn't creativity. It was blasphemy. By the early 1950s, Southern preachers accused Ray of profaning the church, twisting holy rhythms into dance floor temptation. Ironically, the very fusion they condemned would give birth to R&B and reshape American music forever. But behind the genius, Ray carried a private darkness the world didn't see. In 1951, he started using heroin, first to survive brutal touring schedules, then to numb the emotional weight he'd carried since childhood. For nearly 20 years, heroin traveled through him like a second bloodstream. Concert after concert, hit after hit, Ray radiated brilliance. But behind closed doors, addiction hollowed him out. By 1965, the consequences caught up to him. On October 23rd, he was arrested at the Boston airport for heroin possession. The news spread like wildfire. Fans were stunned. Church leaders call it divine punishment for corrupting gospel music during forced withdrawal. Ray later said it felt like he was battling spirits clawing at him. Nurses recalled him trembling violently, whispering into the darkness as if someone were calling his name. Rumors exploded. Some claimed Ray believed he heard divine warnings. Others said he feared darker voices. By 1966, he began rebuilding his career. But those years left a scar he never fully outran. The man who once heard God now lives suspended between genius and torment, between music that lifted souls and demons he could never completely silence. When he died on June 10, 2004, from liver failure in Beverly Hills, the world mourned a giant. But the whispers came back. His gift had been too powerful, too perfect. And like many touched by something divine, Ray Charles paid a price only those closest to him truly understood. James Brown, the ice god shout that spiraled into madness. Before America crowned him the godfather of soul, churchgoers in rural Georgia knew young James Brown as something far stranger, a child who moved like he was possessed. James Joseph Brown Jr. was born on May 3, 1933, in Barnwell, South Carolina, and raised in a level of poverty so crushing it shaped every breath of his early life. In the 1940s, he found himself inside fiery Pentecostal services where worshipers believed the Holy Spirit could physically descend into their bodies. People shouted, convulsed, and erupted into ecstatic cries. James didn't just watch, he absorbed. Witnesses claimed he could mimic the rhythm of a sermon, the trembling cadence of a possessed believer, even the piercing shout of a preacher struck by God's fire. By 12, he had already mastered what would become his legendary God Power shout, a voice so sharp and electrifying that parishioners swore it felt like a gust of wind blowing straight through them. His body moved with the same raw force, razor-quick footwork, explosive bends, wild spins. It wasn't dance. It wasn't performance. It was something primal, almost spiritual. But talent born in the church rarely stays there. In 1955, James Brown joined the famous Flames, and the transformation began. On stage, he became a force no audience could fully explain. Sweat poured from him as if he were burning from the inside out. He screamed, collapsed, resurrected himself, then detonated into motion again, obliterating the line between worship and entertainment. Fans felt exalted. Church elders felt uneasy. By the 1970s, James wasn't just a superstar. He was a storm. Money, pressure, fame, and power wrap around him like chains. He turned to cocaine and PCP, drugs that amplified his intensity but shredded his sanity. The man who once channeled spiritual fire now looked like he was battling invisible enemies. The breaking point came on September 24th, 1988. High on PCP, James burst into an insurance seminar in Augusta with a shotgun, insisting strangers were using his bathroom. The multi-state police chase that followed ended with his arrest and a 3-year prison sentence. America watched in disbelief as mugshots replaced magazine covers. But the darkest stories didn't come from tabloids or police reports. They came from the people closest to him in those final years. Between 2004 and 2006, long after the spotlight had dimmed, former staff described a man terrified of something no one else could see. They said he developed an overwhelming fear of the dark, refusing to sleep unless every lamp in his suite blazed at full brightness. Hotel workers recalled bathroom lights left on until morning, mirrors hidden under towels, TVs blasted to maximum brightness just to keep the room alive. Some crew members claimed he avoided mirrors after midnight, not out of vanity, but fear. According to these unverified insider rumors, he believed mirrors held on to things. One assistant recalled James asking him to remove a dresser mirror because, as he allegedly whispered, "I don't like what looks back at me after shows." Whether he meant exhaustion, aging, or something born from drug-fueled visions, no one could say. But the rumors spread. Then came the most unsettling story, the one insiders still argue about. A longtime stagehand claimed James once froze in a hotel hallway after a show, staring into a pitch-black corner as if someone stood there. No words, no movement, just fear. When staff asked what he saw, he reportedly replied, "It follows me when the music stops." No one could confirm the incident. Some blamed exhaustion. Others said it was myth-making. But the timing matched something real. His paranoia always hit hardest after the final song, when the roar of the crowd dissolved and silence closed in. Rumor or truth, one thing is undeniable. Near the end, James Brown looked haunted, not by ghosts, but by the way of a lifetime lived at full fire. On December 25th, 2006, James Brown died in Atlanta from heart failure. Just hours earlier, he reportedly told his doctor he felt like something wasn't finished. Those became the final words in a life woven from divine electricity, violent spirals, brilliance, terror, and a voice too powerful to belong to just one man. People still argue whether James Brown was touched by God, driven by demons, or both. But everyone agrees on one thing. No one ever shouted like him, and no one ever paid the price he did. Donny Hathaway, the angel voice prodigy whose own brilliance became his undoing. People used to say Donny Hathaway didn't sing like a man. He sang like a choir trapped inside a single body. His voice had a beauty so unreal, it felt borrowed from somewhere beyond this world, and it came with a terrifying price. His story begins long before his music ever hit the radio. Born October 1st, 1945, in Chicago and raised in St. Louis, Donny grew up baptized in gospel, not as entertainment, but as inheritance. His grandmother, Martha Cromwell, a professional gospel singer, trained him from the time he was 3. By 6, listeners swore they could hear more than one voice woven into his tone. Years later, engineers would call it layering before layering existed. Church elders had another name for it, a heaven chord. Through the 1950s, Donny soaked in the thunder of Chicago gospel. Choirs shaking the rafters, rhythms rumbling the floorboards, preachers splitting the air with shouts that made the whole room feel electrified. Donny carried all that inside him. His chest voice was thick, warm, impossibly smooth. His melisma, those effortless runs, came out so naturally that vocal coaches said his technique bordered on medically impossible. In the gospel world, they had a phrase for singers like him: church resonance, a frequency so pure and vibrating that some believed it echoed the very tone charismatic preachers used to call spirits down. By the late 60s, Donny Hathaway was everywhere, writing, arranging, composing, quietly shaping the architecture of soul music. But nothing prepared the world for October 28, 1971, inside the studio during the recording of A Song for You. The moment he stepped up to the mic, before he even sang a note, the engineer said the room felt electrically charged. And when Donny opened his mouth, the engineer swore his voice didn't just echo, it moved. Like light, like something alive. But brilliance like that rarely comes without a shadow, and Donny's shadow grew darker by the year. In 1973, he was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia, a disorder that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Sometimes he believed wires had been implanted in his mind. He asked friends to sweep hotel rooms for hidden microphones. He grew afraid of people looking at him too long, certain they could see something inside him, something he didn't want found. Rumors circulated in the gospel community. Some whispered that Donny believed he'd been cursed for leaving gospel behind, that stepping into secular music had broken a spiritual pact. It was never documented, but the rumors spread anyway, because it matched the fear in his eyes and the heaviness in his voice. By 1978, while working with Roberta Flack, Donny's mental state collapsed. He heard voices. He felt watched. Some nights he paced for hours, humming pieces of old hymns under his breath, as if trying to summon the version of himself who once fell whole. Then came January 13th, 1979, New York City, the coldest week of the winter. Donny checked into the Essex House Hotel overlooking Central Park. Earlier that day, Roberta Flack said he seemed distant, distracted, like he was listening to something no one else could hear. He left the session early. Hours later, his body was found on the sidewalk, 14 stories below his hotel window. The official ruling was suicide, but decades later, the story still doesn't sit right. Friends said he'd been hopeful that very afternoon. Others insisted the window was too small, too awkward to climb through. A few whispered that the way his body felt didn't make sense. What is certain is this: a voice that once sounded like a cathedral collapsed into silence long before its time. Donny Hathaway lived with a gift powerful enough to move millions and a mind too fragile to bear the weight of it. Some say that's the price of genius. Others say it's something older, something sacred and dangerous. In Donny's story, the line between blessing and curse is impossibly thin. Marvin Gaye was a preacher's son who could never quite outrun God. His voice drifted through the air like an angel calling from behind a veil of smoke, soft, sacred, and somehow dangerous. But the closer his music reached toward heaven, the deeper his real life slipped into hell. Marvin Pence Gaye Jr. was born on April 2, 1939, in Washington, D.C., inside a home governed by equal parts religion and fear. His father, Marvin Gaye Sr., was a strict Pentecostal minister, the kind who preached fire, brimstone, and consequences. Marvin grew up caught between hymns and punishment. Yet in the middle of all that turmoil, something miraculous took shape. Before he even turned 10, he could glide from tenor to falsetto with a smoothness almost no male singer alive possessed. His mother called it a blessing. His father, some say, saw it as a threat. Through the 1950s, Marvin found refuge in the doo-wop scene, and by the early 60s, he stepped into Motown's relentless training ground. Even then, people sensed something extraordinary about him. His voice carried a breathy tenderness that somehow still cut like a blade, a sound so intimate it felt like he was whispering his secrets into your chest. Producers said he sang like an angel stepping out of a cathedral. Fans swore he was speaking directly to their soul. Then came 1971, the year he released What's Going On, a song that didn't feel like music so much as scripture. Musicians called it a revolution. The black community called it prophecy. The church called it blasphemy wrapped in brilliance. And Marvin? He felt torn in half. The more divine his work sounded, the more sinful he feared he was becoming. That's when the story darkens. Throughout the late 70s, Marvin spiraled into cocaine addiction. He spent days hidden inside hotel rooms with the curtains drawn, convinced he was being watched. He feared his father. He feared God. He feared himself. He sometimes wore a bulletproof vest indoors. Sometimes he locked himself in closets. Sometimes he told friends he felt unclean, not physically, but spiritually, as if he were still trying to outrun the judgment he'd been raised under. By 1982 and 1983, during the Midnight Love era, his paranoia reached new heights. He stayed awake for days. He moved back into his parents' home in Los Angeles, the very place ruled by the man he had spent a lifetime learning to fear. Marvin believed going home might save him. Instead, it delivered the story's most tragic ending. On April 1st, 1984, after months of escalating tension, Marvin stepped between his parents during an argument. A lifetime of fear collided in a single flash. Marvin Sr. reached for a gun, the same gun Marvin had once given him, and shot his son in the chest. Marvin Gaye died on the floor of his childhood home, one day before his 45th birthday. For many fans, the symbolism was unbearable. The preacher's son with a heavenly voice, killed by the preacher himself. His life became a biblical parable without a redemption arc. A man who sang like salvation, but lived as though he was being hunted by his own soul. And in the end, one question still hangs in the air. Was Marvin Gaye lifted by God or crushed by the world that shaped him? Or was his gift both? A blessing so heavy it broke him from the inside out? Rick James wasn't just a funk legend. He was a prophecy wrapped in gasoline, always second from sparking. If God gifted him his power, the rumors insisted the devil loaned him the rest. Rick James didn't play music. He detonated it. Born February 1st, 1948, in Buffalo, New York, James Ambrose Johnson Jr. grew up in a storm that sculpted him into something wild, electric, and utterly uncontainable. By age 10, he was sneaking into jazz clubs. By 15, he'd enlisted in the Navy to dodge jail time. By 17, he deserted and run off to Toronto, chasing music like it was the only air his lungs recognized. Nothing about his rise felt humanly possible, not at his age. Musicians said the kid carried an energy that didn't belong to him alone, something ancient humming beneath his skin. Black audiences later called it the ancestral rhythm, the beat living in his bones. By the early 1970s, Rick had a reputation. The wunderkind who could write a hit in under an hour. Engineers still talk about the nights he'd burst into the studio, sweating, pacing, mumbling strange melodic scraps. And then, as if a cosmic switch flipped, he'd lay down bass, drums, vocals, harmonies, the entire track in one take. Some said he was possessed by inspiration. Others swore he wasn't alone in the booth. Then came 1978. The year Come Get It hit the world like a lightning strike. On that tour, Rick didn't just perform. He transformed. Fans said the crowd didn't get louder. They erupted. Witnesses claimed he entered a trance. Eyes wide, body jolting, voice slicing through the air like metal on glass. People felt electricity ripple across the room. Others insisted Rick wasn't controlling the stage at all. Something else was. But every gift demands its price. By the 1980s, Rick was drowning, cocaine, alcohol, fame with razor-sharp teeth. He slept 3 hours a night, if he slept at all. The parties were legendary. The aftermath was hell. Insiders whispered about Rick wandering hotel hallways at dawn, shirtless, trembling, arguing with someone no one else could see. Crew members recalled moments when he'd stop mid-sentence, staring into a dark corner with terror spreading across his face. Hallucinations? Trauma? Paranoia? No one knew, but the stories travel fast. In 1989, his downward spiral exploded into public view when he was arrested for assault, a scandal that became one of the decade's most infamous. Courtrooms replaced nightclubs. Mugshots replaced album covers. The world watched as Rick James finally collided with consequences he could no longer outrun. In the quiet years of the early 2000s, before his final relapse, those close to him said Rick often sat at the edge of hotel beds, chest heaving, whispering that he felt watched. Whether it was addiction-induced fear or something deeper, nobody could say. But after his death on August 6, 2004, the whispers only grew louder. The coroner found 9 substances in his system, a destructive cocktail strong enough to stop any heart. And that's when the last rumor cemented itself into the Rick James myth. The man who drew power from the universe died when the universe finally came to collect. Believe it or not, one truth remains untouched. Rick James lived like a comet. Brilliant, furious, impossible to ignore, and destined to burn out long before the world was ready to let him go. Whitney Houston, the voice from heaven that couldn't survive the weight of earth. If God ever placed a voice directly into a human body, the legends all agree he chose Whitney. And the miracle was so immense, it crushed the person carrying it. Whitney Elizabeth Houston entered the world on August 9th, 1963, but her voice sounded older than creation. Raised in New Hope Baptist Church in Newark, young Whitney didn't just sing, she ascended. Members of the congregation still talk about the first time she led a hymn at 11. Her voice climbed into the rafters, filled every corner of the sanctuary, and seemed to make the stained glass windows tremble. Her mother insisted Whitney was born with perfect pitch, acclaimed musicians later confirmed. She could hear harmonies before anyone sang them, carve notes with impossible precision, and unleash a gospel-forged power that felt almost supernatural. By 1985, the world finally realized what that little church already knew. Whitney wasn't a normal singer. Her tone was crystal, her resonance volcanic, her vibrato hit like gospel lightning. Engineers swore she could strike a note and make the studio itself hum. Then came January 27th, 1991, the Super Bowl performance that rewrote American music history. When she sang the Star-Spangled Banner, people didn't say she performed it. They said she lifted it. Fans called it the new national hymn. Others called it proof that God plays favorites. But divine gifts often draw their own darkness. Through the 1990s, Whitney faced the crushing pressure of global fame, tabloids,